For 3,000 years, they were the masters of the earth. They built pyramids that pierced the sky and temples that defied time. But even gods can bleed. How did the most powerful civilization in history crumble into dust? This isn't just a story of war. It's a story of betrayal, climate change, and the inevitable death of a dynasty. Welcome to the Insight Vault. The decline didn't happen overnight. It was a slow poison. It began ironically at the height of their power. The new kingdom was glorious, wealthy, and seemingly invincible. But beneath the gold leaf, rot was setting in. The pharaohs began to lose their grip, not to armies, but to the very priests who served them. The wealth of the temples began to rival the throne. Enter the Ramesside period. Ramesses II, the Great, lived so long that he outlived his capable heirs. By the time he died, Egypt was exhausted. Massive building projects and constant warfare had drained the treasury. His successors inherited a hollow crown. The people were starving, the Nile floods became erratic, and the first recorded labor strikes in history took place. Then came the mystery that still puzzles historians today: the Sea Peoples. Who were they? A confederation of naval raiders who ravaged the Mediterranean. They crushed the Hittites and turned their eyes toward the Nile. Ramesses III fought them off in a brutal naval battle, saving Egypt, but the cost was astronomical. The victory was the beginning of the end. With the treasury empty and trade routes disrupted by the Sea Peoples, Egypt fractured. The centralized power of the pharaoh dissolved. We entered the Third Intermediate Period. Egypt was split in two. The high priests of Amen ruled the south from Thebes, while a separate dynasty ruled the north from Tanis. A house divided cannot stand. Weakness invites predators. The Libyans were the first to infiltrate, not as conquerors initially, but as settlers and mercenaries who eventually seized the throne. For over 2 centuries, Libyan chiefs ruled as pharaohs. They adopted Egyptian culture, but the purity of the bloodline was broken. The psychological armor of Egypt's divine invincibility was shattered. But the Libyans were not the only ones watching. To the south, the kingdom of Kush and Nubia had grown powerful. They revered Amen and saw themselves as the true restorers of Egyptian tradition. Under King Pi, the Nubians marched north. In a stunning twist of irony, the Black Pharaohs conquered Egypt to save it from itself, unifying the land once more. The Nubian 25th dynasty brought a brief renaissance. They built pyramids again and restored temples. But a new, terrifying superpower was rising in the east: the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians were a war machine unlike anything the world had seen, armed with iron weapons while the Egyptians were still fighting with bronze. The technological gap was fatal. The conflict was brutal. The Assyrian king Esarhaddon, and later Ashurbanipal, invaded Egypt. The Nubians were driven back south. Thebes, the sacred city of Amen, was sacked and looted. The temples were stripped of their gold. It was a humiliation that echoed through the ancient world. Egypt was no longer a player. It was a prize to be fought over. A brief period of independence followed under the Saite dynasty, a last gasp of native rule. They tried to turn back the clock, mimicking the art of the Old Kingdom to pretend everything was fine. They employed Greek mercenaries to defend their borders. But relying on foreign swords is a dangerous game. The geopolitical map was changing too fast for traditional Egypt. Then came the Persians. In 525 BC, Cambyses marched on Egypt, Legend says he used cats animals, sacred to Egyptians, as shields in the Battle of Pelusium. The Egyptians refused to fire arrows for fear of hurting the gods. Whether true or myth, the result was the same. Egypt became a satrapy, a mere province of the Persian Empire. The pharaoh was now a Persian king. Egyptian nationalism flared up occasionally. Native rebellions managed to kick the Persians out for about 60 years. But the Persians returned with a vengeance, dealing the final blow to native Egyptian rule. From this point on, no native Egyptian would rule their own land for over 2,000 years, until the mid-20th century AD, the native bloodline of power was severed. Salvation, or so it seemed, came from the west. Alexander the Great arrived in 332 BC. He didn't come as a conqueror, but as a liberator from Persian rule. The Egyptians welcomed him. He was crowned pharaoh in Memphis and consulted the oracle at Siwa, who confirmed his divinity. He founded Alexandria, a city that would become the brain of the Mediterranean. When Alexander died, his generals carved up his empire. Ptolemy, a clever Macedonian general, claimed Egypt. This began the Ptolemaic dynasty. They were Greek, they spoke Greek, and they lived in Alexandria. For 300 years, the rulers of Egypt couldn't even speak Egyptian. They treated the country as their personal estate, extracting immense wealth to fund their wars. Despite the foreign rule, this was a time of cultural fusion. The Library of Alexandria gathered the world's knowledge. The Lighthouse of Alexandria guided ships. But internally, the Ptolemies were a mess of incest and murder. Brothers married sisters to keep power, leading to genetic problems and vicious family feuds. The dynasty was rotting from the inside. Finally, we reached the last pharaoh, Cleopatra VII. Unlike her ancestors, she bothered to learn the Egyptian language. She was brilliant, charismatic, and ruthless. But she inherited a kingdom on the brink of collapse, heavily in debt to the rising monster across the sea, the Roman Republic. She knew Egypt couldn't survive Rome militarily, so she tried to conquer it romantically. Her first alliance was with Julius Caesar. She had herself smuggled into his palace, rolled up in a carpet, a gamble that changed history. With Caesar's legions, she secured her throne against her brother. She bore him a son, Caesarion, dreaming of uniting Rome and Egypt into one universal empire. It was a bold vision, but fate had other plans. The Ides of March, 44 BC, Caesar is assassinated. Cleopatra flees Rome, her dream shattered, but she doesn't give up. She turns her attention to Mark Antony, the ruler of Rome's eastern provinces. This wasn't just love, it was politics. Antony needed Egypt's grain and gold. Cleopatra needed Antony's legions to protect her crown and her son's legacy. Their partnership was legendary, known as the Inimitable Livers. They lived in excess in Alexandria while Rome turned against them. Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, painted Antony as a traitor who had lost his soul to a foreign sorceress. The propaganda war was brutal. Octavian declared war, not on Antony, but on Cleopatra, framing it as a crusade against the Egyptian menace. The climax came at Actium, 31 BC, a naval battle that decided the fate of the Western world. Cleopatra and Antony's heavy ships were outmaneuvered by Octavian's agile fleet. Miscommunication or perhaps panic caused Cleopatra to break through the line and flee. Antony followed her, abandoning his men. The war was lost. The couple retreated to Alexandria to await the end. As Octavian's troops entered Alexandria, the tragedy unfolded. Antony, hearing a false rumor of Cleopatra's death, fell on his sword. He died in her arms. Cleopatra was captured. She knew Octavian planned to parade her in chains through the streets of Rome as a trophy. For the descendant of gods, this was a fate worse than death. August 1230 BC, Cleopatra locked herself in her mausoleum. Legend speaks of an asp, a venomous cobra, hidden in a basket of figs. Whether by snake bite or poison, she took her own life. With her last breath, the Ptolemaic dynasty ended. The pharaonic line, stretching back 3,000 years, was extinguished forever. Egypt became the property of the Roman emperor. It was no longer a kingdom, it was Rome's breadbasket. The temples were slowly abandoned. The hieroglyphs, once the language of the gods, became unreadable as Christianity and later Islam swept through the land. The sands slowly reclaimed the monuments. The ancient wisdom was locked away in stone, silent for centuries. But is ancient Egypt truly dead? Look around. Our calendar, our medicine, our architecture, even the concept of the 24-hour day echoes of Egypt are everywhere. They pursued immortality above all else, and in a way, they achieved it. Their stones may have crumbled, but their civilization lives on in the DNA of human history. Conclusion: the fall of Egypt teaches us that no empire is eternal. Internal division, economic exhaustion, and failure to adapt to a changing world can bring down even the mightiest giants. The Sphinx still watches over Giza, a silent witness to the rise and fall of human ambition. Outroe CTA. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, help us uncover more history by liking this video and subscribing to the Inside Vault. What civilization should we explore next? The Mayans, the Romans? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, keep digging for the truth.